Did you know you could sponsor Nerd and Tie? That's right. If you go to nerdandtie.com right now and click on the sponsor information and toss us $20, we'd say something nice about you right now. Or you can help contribute to our legal fund by going to gofundme.com/nerdandtie. It's fun, it's exciting, it's a thing that you can do that will make your parents proud. And don't you want to make your parents proud?
This week on Nerd and Tie, Amazon is developing a triplicate of new shows. Pacific Rim Uprising trailer just released, and we are totally excited. Sonic the Hedgehog, the movie, is still a thing, ? Time Lord Expo canceled their show 1 week before the con. Wizard World cancels all but 2 of their remaining 2017 shows. The mailbag and more.
Woohoo!
Oh, yeah.
I am one of your hosts, and one of your triplicates of hosts. Haha.
I love the word
I'm
triplicate so
again.
much.
So many threes today. 1/3 of us is with words. Nick Izumi is a person with me.
Hi, everybody.
And Trey Dorn is the other person with me. Yeah,
I'm a person.
nerds and their ties.
And my frame rate is terrible, but I am amazing. Well, the first, like, anybody who watched the previous episode on YouTube, like, for the most part, it was fine, but, like, the first, like, 5 minutes were, like, watching one of those, like, and this is going to date me, but, like, those grade school slideshows with the tape, and they'd, like, hear the beep, and then they'd advance to the next slide. I was born in 1980, and it's really obvious that no one else was catching my reference there.
No.
There was this thing, so it wasn't like it was like a slideshow projector, only it did, like, it had it in strip form, and it was this thing. It was ubiquitous throughout, like, it was both in my Chicago school district when I was in kindergarten and in the Milwaukee suburbs when I was growing up. And there were these things where they'd play a tape, and it would beep, and that's when the teacher had to manually advance the slide. And
oh, wait, I actually have one of those machines. No, I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
I actually have one.
But it was this thing that, like, every public school, like, if you went to public school in the 80s, like, it was just everywhere, and, like, yeah, it was a thing.
Catholic school in the 90s had those because that's all we had, because despite the fact that tuition was ridiculous, all of our tech was from, like, the late 80s at the earliest.
Yeah.
My first computer classes were done on an Apple II.
So were mine. But it was relevant at the time.
I was about to say, but for you, that
they
was
were still
relevant.
making them. The 2GS hadn't come out yet.
See, I would have been, like, really advanced because we had the big CRTs that stood on top of the really tall rolling carts, and they'd wheel it into the classroom in front of us. And we had Macintoshes in the computer room, but there were 2 computers in the library, and those were iMacs. And, like, oh, you were special if you got to go play on the iMac.
The iMac was invented while I was in high school.
Good God.
Like, I was born in 1980. Nick, you were born in 89.
89.
Again, how old? What year were you born?
1990. On the cusp.
So there's a decade between me and Gen. Like, so that's, like, there's such, like, minor, like, technological, like, we still had film strips, like, actual, like, projectors when I was in, like, we're still using those through high school because they just still had the film strips, because, you gotta remember, like, even though, like, video projectors came out, like, they were still really expensive in 1990, so everyone was like, you'd have the TV carts would come in if there was something on, like, video, but you'd still, like, dig out film strips for, like, the really old stuff. And I remember, so there's a story that my sister had that when she was in in high school in physics. There's this teacher. He was a really good teacher. I had him also, Mr. Aloysia. I'm just gonna name drop him right there, from people who went to school at Wauwatosa East High School, and he was a really good teacher. But he once apparently put on a film strip and fell asleep during it, and so like the lights were off in the room, and like just suddenly you hear that flippity 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 at the end of the film strip, because again it's a real film projector in the room, and everyone, like the students, just looking around when they finally noticed that like the teacher is like snoring. I did have one in his class. I had a very different experience where he put on a video, and at the end of the video he turned on the lights, and it was a really boring educational video. Like I think it was one he was required to show. Either that or
Story of my life.
But at the end of the video, like he turned the lights on, and the only two people awake, he was standing up and I was sitting up in my chair, and literally the rest of the class was like asleep on their desks.
That's great.
It was me and him
Beautiful.
and 29 sleeping people.
That's truly beautiful.
Tales from Tosa East in the 90s. Oh man.
The legends were true.
Oh. How did we get here? So welcome to Let's Reminisce About Going to High School a Really Long Time Ago podcast. The only show on the internet where we talk about Mr. Aloysia.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should move on to something the people actually care about.
Yeah, like our first actual story of the evening.
Throw it at us, Ken.
So Amazon is working on adapting 3 bitty go my words again.
Again speaks English very well and works in a job where she's required to speak to the public quite regularly, in fact.
Yeah.
So
sorry everyone. It's been a long day cashiering for a huge sale and it sucked. But I want to get this right. Amazon is adapting 3 big properties for television. The company is working on taking on Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash, Larry Niven's Ringworld, and Greg Rucka's Lazarus from books / graphic novels. I've personally never
first two
heard of these.
You've never heard of Oh,
I've never heard of these either. I have no idea what any of this is.
What? What? What?
Yeah.
Snow Crash is like one of the Snow Crash, which by the way is a main character named Hero Protagonist, is like one of the most cited cyberpunk novels ever written. Larry Niven's Ringworld is one of the most influential science fiction books of the 20th century and is the inspiration for so much, including the very premise of the video game series Halo. And Lazarus is okay if you've never heard of it. I mean, it's good, but it's not like changing the world.
I'm not saying that it's not important. I just haven't heard of it.
Yeah.
See, I can see their faces. They can't see mine because I'm the one sending video to YouTube right now, so I can't send video to them. But if they could see my expression,
well, I can imagine. I can imagine your disbelief.
And by God, listeners, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Like,
okay, you know what, listeners, I want to take this bet. How many of you are actually familiar with these series?
Raise your hands if you've ever heard these before.
Please, listeners, write in just to tell them how weird it is that they've never heard of Snow Crash or Ringworld. Snow Crash especially, like Ringworld's a big deal, but like it's not like the Shannara books. Like people who don't read the genre might not have heard of it, so fine. But Snow Crash.
I reiterate, people, listeners, let Trey know that it's ridiculous to think that we would
So I was right on being a little confused with this being our top story.
Yeah,
Cool.
I'm with you.
Just
I have
like,
no
what
idea
are
what these are.
Oh my God, Snow
No idea.
Crash! You like Snow Crash? It's like I understand never having read it,
Never even
but
heard of it
like
before
when
this story
people
came up.
name like important cyberpunk novels.
Ringworld I've heard of. I've never heard of Snow Crash.
You've never
I
heard of
have
Snow
heard of
Crash.
Ringworld.
Snow
I've heard
Crash.
of
Here, if I
Lazarus in a in like a strictly biblical sense.
Same.
Google cyberpunk,
Not everyone is so into cyberpunk as you are.
It's true.
like if I'm gonna mention like important, like if I was gonna pick two influential cyberpunk books that like shaped the genre, um, like if the first two I would pick are probably Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson and then Neuromancer by William Gibson.
My introduction to the cyberpunk genre was Bubblegum Crisis.
I don't remember what mine was. I think it was the fashion.
so, so
It was rave
any
fashion.
discussion of this has just been derailed by the fact that two of us have no idea what any of this is.
We run a great podcast.
Oh my God!
Top notch. Top
It's like,
notch reporting.
I don't ask the people like the book. I don't ask the people who've even read it, but have heard of it. Have heard of Snow Crash? Oh my
How about
God!
we just move on to something we've all heard of at least?
Well, okay, so the important thing here, I guess, is that whether you've heard of these or not, that it's a cyberpunk, classic science fiction, and then Lazarus, whatever the hell Lazarus is about. I've never read it. I've heard of it, but I've never read it. But all three of these are big properties that Amazon is developing, which means they're going all in on genre television. Between them, these three things, The Man in the High Castle, based off of the Philip K. Dick. Sir, y'all have heard of Philip K. Dick, right?
Yeah.
And Ben Edlund's The Tick, which is currently amazing.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, like
it's shows
Amazon's going all in on kind of genre television programming, which is a big deal. And I'm gonna please listeners, please big nerd listeners who may have died a little inside with me when these two hadn't heard of Snow Crash, please stay with us. We love you. Oh, y'all are lucky Topher doesn't listen to this show.
I don't think Topher likes me anyway. I think we're fine. We'll be fine.
Topher likes you as much as he likes most people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that means.
It means he's just kind of a dick. But he's my friend. So yeah, it is a big deal that these shows are getting made. Now mind you, they're still in development, so crap falls apart all the time. For all we know, they're not even going to make it to pilot season, but the fact that they're dishing out the rights to these books is kind of a big deal. Right?
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Sure.
I'm going to go ask my wife if she's heard of Snow Crash.
I'm glad. I mean, I'll say it this way. I'm glad Amazon is getting so into genre TV. In fact, I'm just kind of happy that genre TV is kind of on the up and up, it seems, just in a lot of places. So, that's good.
1 week till Voltron. Sorry.
I know. So exciting. Speaking of giant robots.
Yeah.
Yay!
Perfect.
Okay.
Good job.
Speaking of piloted giant robots, something that we all actually have an opinion
God damn it.
So the Pacific Rim Uprising trailer went live this last week. Quite the display of explosions and swirling camera and John Boyega looking into the middle distance heroically. And I think all want this to be good. Yes.
Yes.
I mean, like that's like okay. I guess
Sorry.
Here I am. Like I guess let's focus on things that are exciting first because I have qualms because it's Nick, and my job on this show is to have qualms even with things I like. So.
Yep.
But yeah, like some pretty crazy looking kaiju, some fun scenes of Japanese people running like hell from said crazy looking kaiju.
Good
Variety
looking
of
robots.
yeah, some really neat looking Jaegers.
Good looking Jaegers.
Jaeger.
Jaeger.
I like Gypsy Avenger, the Gypsy Danger Mark II looking robot, and it's double fusion drive thing. I'm feeling that. That's
and apparently this
neat.
one remembers it has swords.
I refuse to believe that no one remembered the swords were there. I think that was something Mako added in her upgrades and didn't actually tell.
So there's a
about.
I've seen video footage of it that leaked out of New York City Comic Con of the Pacific Rim 2 panel where Charlie Day did a video message where he started proposing theme songs. And one of the lines that it was, "Don't forget you have a sword. Just bring that out right away. Like, just start hitting the kaiju with it."
Fair.
Start with the sword.
Yeah. That's. Come on, though. It's Voltron rules. The sword is always what you deploy last, even if it is the most effective weapon.
Yeah.
Yep.
I will say if I have a couple qualms. The cinematography at least in the first half of the trailer was a little Michael Bay-esque for my comfort.
Yeah, it's a very different visual than the first Pacific Rim.
And I'm not sure I'm feeling that yet. I mean, not everyone's going to like that washed out, dark, color corrected look from the first one, but I'm not sure how I feel about this one. And on one hand, the bright colors are refreshing, but on the other hand, visually, it's very different.
Yeah, and I think that's where the big loss of not having Del Toro direct this time around it really comes through. Is I agree with you completely. I think the first movie had a very distinct visual palette, which felt very neon on black. Like if I was going to talk about like a single way to describe the colors, that's what it would be. While this was just very, I didn't even think about Michael Bay when I was watching it, just because I try not to think about Michael Bay on a daily basis. But now that you say it, not the later Transformers movies, but I'll say the earlier Transformers movies is what the visuals like.
Especially the girl as the fixed point while the camera rotates while there's explosions going on around her.
Well,
that's
a Michael Bay. That is a Michael Bay's favorite shot is the rotating camera around a single source while the background shifts. It would only be more Michael Bay if someone stood up into that shot. Other people have tried to ape that shot. Like Michael Bay is a master of making that shot look perfect. So I think it's impossible to tell from the trailer. So the problem with Michael Bay is to talk about the visual language of Michael Bay is Michael Bay can make any shot look amazing. He can. Right. The problem is that he never knows when to use the shots with weight versus when not to. So he gives every shot too much weight. And so you end up...
For more info on this, check out Every Frame of Paintings video, because he...
Oh, yeah,
A+.
and... Yeah. Oh, I didn't even think about that one. Yes, that's a really good video. I think some of the stuff in... yeah. Anyways, doesn't matter. Actually, that's a much better video example than I was going to cite. But yes, so... Like, there's no...
Lindsay Ellis says The Full Plate is a good series too, but that one is a really concise.
She addresses it a little, but he addresses it way better. So because that's not her focus. So yeah, it comes down to the fact that there's Michael Bay didn't do it as much in the earlier Transformers movies, like the first two, which is why I can remember the plot to the first two movies, but I can't remember the plot to the third one. I literally cannot remember the plot to the third one, other than remembering that the Milwaukee Art Museum is apparently not in Milwaukee anymore and is apparently full of some rich guy's cars. I think they put it on the East Coast and turned Lake Michigan into the Atlantic Ocean.
That they did.
Yeah.
That is a true thing.
But it's also like that's in like the city of Milwaukee logo and in the postcards. Like that building is super famous. Like anyone who's ever been to Milwaukee is suddenly is going to be like, well, I'm pulled out of this. Like it's on our morning news.
Everyone I know from Wisconsin was pulled out of that scene.
Yeah, no,
everyone.
But that's the only thing I remember from Transformers 3. Is literally that. So,
I wish that was all I remembered from that movie.
So, but what I'm saying is though is that like the visual language being in that style doesn't bother me so much as long as the rest of the film direction knows how to weight it properly. Because I will say the second Transformers movie, the first one has problems with making sure that the robots are always in frame, but visually there's nothing wrong with there are many things wrong with the second Transformers movie, but visually the way the robots are shot is fine. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Is okay.
Yeah. My only other weird this is a really goofy qualm, but I'm gonna point it out anyway. One of these Jaegers, the big green one with the wrecking ball, is looks if it had a little bit more personality in its face, it's how I wish Bulkhead would look in a live action Transformers.
Oh my God, you are so right. I didn't even think about that.
Totally, it's a big
go.
green bulky robot with a wrecking ball. It's my buddy Bulkhead. One of my favorite modern Transformers. To a T.
I've never even watched the show he's from, but I know what you're talking about. I know the character design you're talking about, and now I can't unsee that.
He's one of the best new characters in the series. Yeah. I mean,
I just didn't because he was introduced on animated, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was introduced in animated, and then they carried him over to Prime.
Yeah, and animated.
So that's all he's been in.
I've always wanted to watch animated. I just Prime. I watched an episode of and just didn't quite get into it. Animated, I never got to watch because I just didn't have cable when it was on.
And animated's great. Prime is good after the first episode.
You mean the only episode I watched?
Yeah, the first episode looks and is paced like a turd, and then the rest of it plays out really nicely, and the animation takes a steady increase in quality. But that first episode is not good, and that sucks because the rest of the show is really solid and gets really uncomfortably dark, but in a good way.
Yeah. So back to the Pacific Rim.
Pacific Rim, yeah. Other than that, I'm hoping it'll be good. John Boyega is awesome.
I really liked his voiceover. He I mean, obviously, the accent's the same, but the way that the lines were written were paced very much the way that Idris Elba delivered his lines in the first movie. And so it felt like a logical connection for him to be for Jake Pentecost to be Stryker Pentecost's son.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think Idris Elba's character's name's Stryker Pentecost, right?
Stacker.
Thank you. Stacker, Stryker, whatever.
Everyone had a silly name in that movie.
Stacker Pentecost with Stryker Eureka, and I don't know.
Thank you.
It was Stacker Pentecost, and he piloted Stryker Eureka at the end of the movie.
Thank you. I know it wasn't crazy. I haven't watched the movie for a couple of years. But Jake, so John Boyega's delivery of those lines felt very Idris Elba. So I'm very optimistic. I'm I don't know. I'm very optimistic about this film. I am gonna go in there with cautious optimism, which is the same way that I went into Wonder Woman. And Wonder Woman, thankfully, didn't disappoint me. Wonder Woman was frankly great. But if Wonder Woman had been terrible, I was ready for it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So what I'm gonna walk into Pacific Rim 2 really excited to be there, but ready for it to be like Transformers 3. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it is gonna fall into the sequelitis.
Well, it's a sequel. It's not written by the same people who wrote the first one. It's it's not different writer, different director, and we can't really know we can't ever really know what Guillermo del Toro's version of Pacific Rim 2 would have been, but we know it wouldn't have been this because he's just got a very specific visual style which can't be, imitated. So and they're not trying to imitate it, they're trying to, create something in the same world. And so I'm gonna give it a shot, and I'm gonna hope because I want the Pacific Rim. I just want it to be a good movie. It doesn't have to be as good as the first one. It doesn't even have to be half as good as the first one because the fact is the Pacific Rim franchise is something new and exciting that we didn't have before, and the first movie is just awesome. And so I just don't want it to be something where, like, you know how The Matrix feels less amazing because of the second and third movie?
Yeah.
Like, even though it's ostensibly the same movie it always was, knowing that these other things that are bad are part of the same universe, like, kind of just pulls away from it. It's the same reason why I can't rewatch 2007 Transformers anymore, which I genuinely liked at the time. For all of its, like,
tried to watch it recently, which is because I really do like that movie. I still really like that movie, and I don't know.
It's I will watch. I had a dream. I had a dream last night, and I am not kidding, that there was a secret Shia LaBeouf cameo in the next Transformers movie, and that I had been on set and had gotten, was trying to get a photo of him on set out to get onto Nerd and Tie. I swear to God, this was my dream last night.
Run for your life.
I am, and it's, that I had gotten, I wasn't on set, no, I had gotten a hold of a special, a sneak preview showing of the film and was trying to get a screenshot before someone caught me in the theater and kicked me out. Trying to get pull out my phone and, take a picture of the screen before I got caught, and I couldn't get the picture out. It was so frustrating. But it's not true. It's not true. That's the only thing that can get me to go see another Transformers movie at this point, is the return of Shia LaBeouf.
I'm going to go see the
Bumblebee movie. We're all going to see the Bumblebee movie.
Bumblebee movie is going to be awesome.
We're all going to see it. But
I haven't seen the last two, but I'm going to see the Bumblebee movie because
I left in the middle of the fourth one, and I did not see the fifth one. Yeah, it's.
I didn't see the fourth one at all. I didn't see the fifth one at all. I'm gonna see the Bumblebee movie because it's the guy who did Kubo and Box Trolls and a bunch of other movies that I liked, and I choose to be optimistic.
Oh yeah, we're all gonna choose to be optimistic, and we will all be disappointed, but it'll be disappointed in theaters.
Man. Well.
And they'll use that money to make 5 more Transformers movies.
Fuck. And I said the F word. I'm sorry.
Oh, well.
This time I dropped it before you did. Oh, well.
I know.
Anyway.
I know. That's really rare. Usually I'm the one who gets us in trouble linguistically. But so anyways, Pacific Rim.
Still choosing to be excited, yeah. Staying positive.
Yeah. You know what I'm not excited about?
Oh boy.
You know what?
Lots of things.
Mostly, actually, you know what I'm puzzled about? Y'all remember how they're supposedly making a live-action Sonic the Hedgehog movie? Mm-hmm. You'd be forgiven if you forgot, because it's been over a year since we heard anything about it. But apparently, if you recall, they want to make a live-action CGI mixed Sonic the Hedgehog movie. This is what I describe as a terrible idea because, honestly, Sonic works well in an animated form, but he has one eye. His eyes connect to each other. It's one giant eye with 2 dots. There's a reason why the Sonic Hedgehog gene, named for the character, is the gene that leads to Cyclopsis. So, I'm not even joking. Look that shit up. I am not wrong. So this is still happening. This, what would be imagine Sonic the Hedgehog in 3 dimensions standing in the room with you, and then think about how horrific that would be. And then you have to ask yourself, is he gonna be hedgehog scaled? Because hedgehogs are not large animals. And so, like, is he a tiny blue little freaky thing, or are they gonna, like, it's a live action movie, which means,
Oh God, I'm
is
imagining it. It's the worst thing ever.
or is he gonna be scaled the way he is in the video games, like in the 3-dimensional video games, where he, like, runs through, like, cities and stuff, like where he's much more person sized, which I've never understood. So that always confused me too. But at least it was in a game and not like. Well, anyways, that film is still happening, and the big news is that at least Sony was smart enough not to make it, and it's moving to Paramount, home of the Transformers franchise. Yeah. So why, again? Why do you think this is happening?
Cash grab. Nostalgic cash grab. Yep.
Who are the people supporting Sonic anymore, though? I mean, I guess his most recent game actually got good reviews, but it was a nostalgic cash grab, so never mind.
But, okay, so Sonic works well in animated form, and I'm not going to harsh on the anime series or the first of the 2 U.S. animated series, the second one.
The SatAM one?
Yeah.
Sonic SatAM, the awesome one?
Yeah,
with the
right. Like,
storyline and the
and while there
animation.
And while there is fiction from those versions, the vast majority of people familiar with Sonic the Hedgehog are not actually familiar. Like, there's a hardcore Sonic fandom which is familiar with the plots of at least the anime. Like, those people exist and make disturbing fan art. But they're real, and they have money, but the American companies aren't going to look into that lore. And all I can think about is the Super Mario Brother movie.
Ugh.
Like, right, like the last time someone tried to adapt, like someone tried to, like, so, like, you could do a Resident Evil movies are a mixed bag of garbage, but the first one's okay. The one that actually feels like a Resident Evil story. And not just a let's watch this superhero beat everything up with Resident Evil as a backdrop that the rest of the franchise was, with an inconsistent mythology. But the first one, so like you could, like, but it's all like human shaped people in a environment. The last time someone tried to do like a mascot video game movie that I can think of is in live action is Super Mario Brothers. Right?
Well, I'd say because every other time it's been an animated thing. And here's the thing, though.
It's the movie that killed Bob Hoskins. He didn't die for years.
Hot take here. Hot take. I don't think Super Mario Brothers is a doomed from the start project, because I think there is a way to make an okay Mario Brothers movie. Sonic, on the other hand, I can't see that. Well, but that's because Mario is actually a human character.
I know, right? Like, the movie wasn't even the first live-action Mario.
Mm-hmm.
Before, Bob Hoskins... Is that who played him? Who cares? Guy from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Sorry, again, I didn't mean to talk over
Bob Hoskins.
Yeah, okay. And then, but, Captain Lou Albano had already been playing him on television. So, that's my Mario. That's his canonical name now.
I know, because of that movie.
I know.
Because of that movie.
I know, I love it. I love it so much. Mario, Luigi Mario.
I don't...
Jumpman Mario.
That's his father.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's
a fan theory. There's a fan theory that the Mario in Donkey Kong is, in the Donkey Kong games, is Mario's father. And
I don't know, between this and Vink's blog, I've learned a lot about Mario's family.
But I think that by what's-her-face appearing in the next Mario game, Mario's original girlfriend is going to be in New Donk City.
Yeah. His ex.
Yeah, like, I normally know it off the top of my head. I just can't remember. Like, there was a theory that... because the Donkey Kong in the original Donkey Kong... Pauline.
That's it.
Yeah, because the Donkey Kong in the original Donkey Kong isn't like the current Donkey Kong, because Donkey Kong Jr. from the Donkey Kong games is the current Donkey Kong, while the original Donkey Kong from the first Donkey Kong is Cranky Kong.
Of course, just like how Godzilla isn't the original Godzilla, because the original Godzilla is dead.
Right. But I mean, like, importantly, the original Donkey Kong is still in the Donkey Kong games, just with and that's
old.
And that's why Donkey Kong Jr.'s son is Diddy Kong instead of being Donkey Kong Jr., who is an already established character in the series, because it is already Donkey Kong, the current Donkey Kong.
Well, going back to Sonic the Hedgehog, though, I can't help but notice that not that long ago, actually just a few months ago, Archie Comics canceled their 24-year run of their Sonic the Hedgehog comic, which, I mean, if we want to go into the weird realms of how disturbing this franchise can be when it tries to have a story, look only to Archie Comics.
I don't know. I think anyone who wants to know more about Sonic the Hedgehog should watch H. Bomber Guy's serious Sonic lore analysis video.
That's an awesome video.
And that'll tell you exactly what live-action Sonic should look like. It's important. It's very important. Nick is laughing because Nick has seen it.
Because H-Bomb is one of my favorite YouTube channels. He's just... Oh my god. Where else can I get serious video game analysis interspersed with making fun of Sargon of Akkad? Only there. That's where.
Yeah. Oh, I came for his videos about, like, Davis Aruni, and then I stayed for his video game analysis. Oh god.
Oh my god.
No, the first thing I ever saw, like the first video of his I ever watched was his mocking the Sarkeesian Effect trailer. And like the moment I knew I needed to subscribe to his channel was when he broke out laughing while recording the thing when he noticed the toy skull was in another shot. That Davis Aruni was moving around this toy skull around his apartment.
What is it with you people and skulls? No, seriously. What is it with you people and skulls?
Man.
So
meanwhile, Gen
if nothing
sits there.
else, this will be something to laugh at.
Gen sits there judging us.
As usual.
Gen, you should actually really watch his channel. You'd enjoy it. I guarantee it.
H Bomber Guy. It is.
I will send you the serious lore analysis.
Yeah, that's a good video to start with. It's like his channel is a combination of video game commentary and then taking down anti-feminists. Like a mixture of it. It is. Although he did a really fascinating video on VHS scan lines, that
just went up this week, and that was really good too.
That's oh god, it's so good. It's his brand of humor still, but like an insightful analysis about something that has nothing to do with like his regular topics.
Also, his Sherlock video is beautiful.
Oh yes, Sherlock is garbage, and here's
an hour
why.
Long, and I've rewatched it several times.
As a person who loves Sherlock, I agree with everything he said. He is not wrong on a single point in that video, and that's where we lost Gen. Gen died because we talked about Sherlock.
What? Oh, dang it.
Now Gen's back. Gen's returned to life. We
don't
do
know
believe in Gen. We do believe in Gen. We do believe in Gen. Everybody clap. All the children at home. That's a Peter Pan play reference. I'm making... Ever watch the Mary Martin version of Peter Pan? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
We need to move forward. Not get sidetracked.
So, speaking of aborting things like this conversation, Time Lord Expo was supposed to be happening next week in Columbus, Ohio. I say that without looking at the article. Dayton, Ohio. Dayton, Ohio. So, like, a drive over from Columbus. So, Dayton, Ohio's Time Lord Expo was supposed to happen just next weekend. Next weekend, I think is next weekend. What day is today? Yeah, next weekend.
It's the 8th.
We accidentally said in the rundown, because I wrote it wrong in the rundown that Gen read, that it was canceled a week ahead of time. It was canceled 2 weeks ahead of time. That was my mistake, that Gen then read, believing that I had done my research and that I had done my job properly, producing the show.
I trusted you.
She did, and I realized while she read, I said, why'd she say 1 week? And then I looked at the rundown and I said, I wrote down 1 week. That's why Gen said 1 week. I'm an idiot. So anyways, 2 weeks before the convention, they officially canceled the event. Convention organizer Patrick Baumgartner took to the con's official Facebook page and announced the cancellation earlier on September 28th. I am sure some of you have heard, blah, 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 blah. He made some excuses about some of the guests canceling, and then, yeah. So here's the thing. So several days before this cancellation was announced, Doctor Who online store Wibbly Wobbly Timey Wimey announced that they had been told to cancel. The owners of the Wibbly Wobbly Timey Wimey store had been helping organize the con. Were told to cancel any flights for guests, and then an announcement was happening soon. And then the con just sat on it for like half a week, and so the store announced that they're like, we don't know what's happening. We're not involved anymore. This is what we were told. And since they were also they were officially the ones bringing Terry Malloy, that obviously he wasn't going to be at the con, because but then the con just we're done. There are reports from inside, from people we've talked to, or I should say people I talked to who were familiar with some of the inner workings of the stuff, that just sounded like they were flat out of money. It really feels like the con tried to hyperextend itself, and tried to they were trying to bring in Sylvester McCoy. They were trying to do this live over Skype thing with Tom Baker. They were doing trying to spend all this money on a first year Doctor Who con in Dayton, Ohio.
Oh jeez, that wasn't. Yeah.
No. And it mostly the general. Patrick Baumgartner is a guy who apparently used to do con stuff, but has been out of the scene for over a decade. And I think it's a guy who was overconfident and bit off way more than he could chew, and tried to do something at such a scope that doesn't really work anymore, or the way he thought it did. Or that the fact that now we exist in a con community where everyone talks to each other, and now we all know his name. But so yeah, the whole con was just kind of canned just 2 weeks ahead of time, which sucks because a lot of people have made travel plans, a lot of things like that. There is good news that Wibbly Wobbly Timey Wimey, the store, is organizing a free replacement event on Sunday the 14th,
that's cool.
Which would have been the 14th of the con. And they're bringing in Terry Malloy, who they were originally sponsoring to bring as a guest, and also Caitlin Blackwood, who played the young Amy Pond, will also appear there.
That's really neat.
So, the whole thing. So, Caitlin Blackwood's mom commented on our post about this, which is weird.
Yeah, I saw that.
So, what happened was that apparently Caitlin Blackwood's family had planned a whole family vacation in the U.S. based around, and had picked to do this con specifically because it timed out well with their plans, and so they were going to be in the U.S. no matter what, with the con canceled. So, and apparently Caitlin felt bad about disappointing fans, and so they were going to originally just try to do some sort of private meet and greet with fans. And so the fact that Wibbly Wobbly Timey Wimey is organizing this one-day event, it's just a no-brainer. There's more information on the Facebook event page for this, which I will link in the show notes. So if you are in Dayton, Ohio, or the region, or if you were planning on going to Time Lord Expo, you can go. But mostly it sounds like the guy who was running Time Lord Expo just had no idea what he was frickin' doing. And I'm really glad that the Wibbly Wobbly Timey Wimey people are and also especially that Terry Malloy and Caitlin Blackwood are doing this stuff for people because yay, not awfulness.
Indeedy.
Yeah.
I'm glad it worked out well in the end. Anyway, it's not much, but
yeah, no, it's.
I mean, maybe I shouldn't say it's not much. Like the fact that it was anything is good. So yeah, I'm being a little too harsh.
I just think it's really important that, like, when you're starting a first-year event, you don't bite off more than you can chew. Like, if you can't afford to lose everything, don't do it. Like, because it's one thing if you decide not to hold the con again because you ran, it wasn't profitable, but, like, if you can't get through the door...
That sounds really autobiographical there.
Well, the autobiographical stuff was because other costly factors happened that occurred after the announcement of the convention.
True.
And yet again, reminder, the convention that we are alluding to happened. And
true.
Everything promised was delivered.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, like, it gets me that I'm like, if you can't afford to actually run the event in a worst case scenario, you shouldn't do cons.
Agreed.
Like,
we did it, so harumph.
Yeah.
All right.
Again.
Speaking of doing cons.
Again, speaking of conventions. Speaking of
Um,
conventions not happening.
So the other day, Wizard World announced that they were quote unquote postponing 5 of their remaining 7 shows for the rest of the year. And their Austin and Oklahoma City shows will still take place as scheduled, but their other events scheduled to happen in Biloxi, Peoria, Springfield, Montgomery, and Winston-Salem will not be taking place this year.
Oh, the language they used for this.
I know. Saying they're just postponed instead of canceled. They're freaking canceled. Like, they're not happening. Come on, Wizard World, stop beating around the bush. I mean, we're not that surprised. Wizard World has had quite a few financial difficulties in the past few years. The money made has downed. The market is really saturated to this point. We've talked about the saturation of the con bubble in previous shows, but the company has said in the same release that their 2018 lineup of shows is still big and beautiful at 17 shows, and they said that more shows will be added to that, but I'm not so sure how many of those will actually, happen.
So out of those 7, so they announced 17 shows, which does include the 5 shows that were canceled this year. So that's why they're pretending they're postponed until next year. But if I say that, if Made Up a Con, so Made Up a Con 2017 isn't happening, and there will be a Made Up a Con 2018. Made Up a Con 2017 was canceled. Like, it wasn't postponed till next year. Postponing means I'm going to postpone it 3 months. It means I'm going to postpone it 6 months. If it is going to happen the next year on the same weekend I originally announced, that's canceled. And that's a whole new year. And 17 may sound like a lot, but you remember that Wizard World was at one point, I think, doing 27, 28 shows a year. So originally, last year, they announced that they're doing probably around 17 or 18 or 19 or something like that, and then they added more shows to the list. But now that they've cut 5, they are not doing great. Revenue per show is down. Attendance is down. I wouldn't. I
can't see how they're sustainable. But again, they're running the kind of con that isn't it's not really a fan gathering event. It's a people pay money for autographs event.
Yeah, and
which are two very different things.
Like, and I can understand people wanting to go to an autograph con, but the fact is, autograph cons are becoming more and more expensive to run. You celebrity, like, you're expected to get bigger and bigger names. You know, it used to be that if you had, you know, a Ghostbuster, it was a huge deal, and now he's like Ernie Hudson would be the like bottom quarter of the guest list. It's and the fact is that like the so the bigger celebrities are more in demand, who cost more by default, and now celebrities are also seeing how many of these shows there are, so they're asking for higher guarantees, and so it is becoming more costly for a con to bring these big celebrity guests. And I don't really blame the celebrities for asking for more money. I mean, frankly, it's an entire business model based on marketing their name. You know what I mean? So, like, I don't blame the celebrities, but it does mean that as there's higher and higher saturation, like, I would you know, it's if I know that the next opportunity to see celebrity A is going to come along 6 months later, you know, at another show 20 minutes away, am I really gonna, like, I might decide to stay home. Like, it becomes less special. So the more of these shows there are, like, even the people who are in the market, and going to something like this is still, like, if you want to have, like, the full celebrity experience, you're still spending, like, you know, upwards of hundreds of dollars sometimes if you want to go see more than one guest. Like, this stuff ratchets up, and it's like, so the attendees, because the market is saturated, are spreading thinner. Some of them are staying home because it's starting to price out of their budgets, and the cost per celebrity is going up, which means that their costs are rising and their revenue is declining. And
people have less money.
Yeah,
it's just a fact.
Yeah,
just in general.
I was gonna say, from the consumer side, like, it's more and more expensive to get those autographs and to, like, budget yourself to a con to get those autographs. And then, you know, once you get all the autographs of everybody you want, what else do you do?
Yeah, there's no more need.
Like,
yeah. And it's the whole thing is, and not to mention everything's expensive because the con gouges vendors for tables, so the vendors have to raise prices to then account for that money, because, like, an Artist Alley table at a Wizard World show, last time I looked it up, which was admittedly probably about 5 or 6 years ago, was still anywhere from $250 to $350 for the Artist Alley table, which is cheaper than a regular table. While I can go to Anime Central with its 33,000 warm body count, like, we're not talking turnstile, we're talking warm body count, and still pay, like, less than $100 for that Artist Alley table. So, like, if I sold, I don't sell at Wizard World shows because I'd have to charge so much more for my merchandise to make my table back, and so I don't. Like, it's not hard to get a table at a Wizard World show for a reason. It's like it's just not I don't know. Like, Wizard World, so you want to know something funny? Is, so the two guys who founded Wizard World, I forget their names, but they haven't been with the company for a while. They are launching a new. They've been out of the convention scene for a while. They are launching a new, like, a couple of conventions on the East Coast called Ace Comic Con.
Boy.
And they're talking about how, like, they pioneered the model, like, because they've been outside of the Seamus brothers, Stephen and Gary Shavers. They've been out of the Comic-Con, like, market for a while, but they are the ones who created the Wizard World model. And they're talking about, everyone else is doing so well with this model, and we're going to get back into it. And I'm just going, like, these are going to bomb. They don't know what's happened. No one's told them. Like, they're doing so well. I'm like, no, they're not. Like, Wizard World is doing terribly. They're doing terribly. Like, Repop's doing okay. Repop's doing okay, but what Repop did has been taking over, like, when they take over a convention or they start a new one in an area, they'll do some stuff with, like, celebrity-driven events. Like, they'll still do that, but they do a more, like, Emerald City Comic Con is a crafted experience. You know? And admittedly, that was someone else's show that they took over, but it's like they're not doing a generic Wizard World.
I just think I mean, and I don't even know. Like the con scene is, it's all like we finally had the bottom fall out. I think it's in the process of falling out right now. But I do think that there are certain con models that are better equipped to survive than others, and I don't think the Wizard World model is equipped to
Yeah, the
survive.
the Pop Culture Expo is not long for this world. It's at least not in its current form. A show needs, if that's your model and you run a show, it needs to adapt. Like I think that like the AnimeCon circuit, like even once it starts to genericize, because like GeekCon, I would fit into the AnimeCon circuit, even though they're not an AnimeCon. Although we're not going to talk about them, their whole issues right now because but that has nothing to do with the fact that, like, assuming they hadn't. For those of you who don't know, there's been some major staff drama in the GeekCon structure, and they've done some stuff which may or may not end up in an article soon. That could possibly tank their convention, but none of it has to do with financials. Like their business model of like what they spend money on, like the way they spend money has been fine. Like,
yes.
Yeah. And so they're doing something stupid to themselves that has nothing to do with their money. Like smart people could run that convention very well for a long time. But you look at like DaishoCon is genericizing more, and they're in a financially steady position. And so like these the AnimeCon market has had the advantage of not being guest driven. Like they have guests, you bring in guests, but that's not the primary appeal of attending. Like it's at least in the Midwest. I can't speak about the like the West Coast and East Coast cons, but at least in the Midwest, they're very community driven shows, and so you don't have to like spend. And frankly, just anime guests are incredibly inexpensive. Like we're still dealing with appearance fees and not guarantees. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a very different kind of guest.
Yeah,
it's a very different kind of guest.
It's you're talking about guests with appearance fees in like someone's an expensive AnimeCon guest if their appearance fee is like $3,000. Like, and there are still some guests out there who do this stuff who have no appearance fee. It's getting rare. When I started doing AnimeCons, when I co-founded No Brand Con back in the early 2000s, and in the early to mid 2000s, someone having an appearance fee would have made us laugh our asses off. Like, they were not a thing that you had to budget for. Like, guests were happy to come as long as you paid for their airfare, hotel, and food. Like, anime got bigger though, and the AnimeCon circuit got larger, and people became higher in demand, so people could charge appearance fees, and cons do. But the fact is, like, we couldn't have run some of those early cons on the budgets that we'd need to do them now. The way we did them, we would have to find solutions around them. But the fact is that the AnimeCon industry is doing much better financially, mostly just because they have cheaper costs. Like, same with the basic comic conventions. The ones that are actually comic focused, usually they just gouge the vendors.
I would say most just comic conventions I've been to, that's literally it. It's vendor tables.
It's vendor tables. They charge the vendors an arm and a leg, and then they like charge attendees like $1 to come in or $5 to come in, and they just like completely rip off everyone. But that's because I think anime conventions descend a lot from that's the thing. Is pop culture conventions descend from Comic Cons, while anime conventions descend from science fiction conventions, and science fiction conventions, the LitCon has never been an expensive thing to run. You know what I mean? Like, there are authors with big guest appearance fees, but there are always plenty of mid-level authors who are well known enough to have fans, but not popular enough where they're charging appearance fees. It's plain and simple. I was
about to say, yeah, like I've mostly gone to anime conventions, but the one Star Trek convention I went to was very similar in tone and feel.
Well, and it's because anime conventions were modeled off of the. So like that's the thing in the history of conventions. Science fiction conventions, gaming conventions came off of science fiction conventions. Anime conventions came off of science fiction conventions. You go to any of those, and they feel very much the same. Like the focus, how things are. Comic conventions started knowing about science fiction conventions, but none of the people who ran science fiction conventions were involved in those early Comic Cons. They modeled themselves off because sci-fi cons are kind of the oldest, granddaddy thing, the sci-fi, but comic conventions came with a different set of people. They modeled themselves after sci-fi cons. But in a sense, like that was where they got the idea, but it wasn't a lot of crossover people doing the running. And so you ended up with it's a very different part of the culture. It's really interesting as we go forward, it's a different set of people who go to a Comic-Con, who go to a science fiction. Meanwhile, though, you can find the same people at a steampunk con that you will find at an anime con who you'll find at a sci-fi con. The only reason why sci-fi cons are having struggles is because of a generational cultural issue, and where younger people for a long time were not made felt welcome, probably about 20 years ago.
Which is why so many why you see anime conventions have had so much bleed over of people in Star Trek uniforms and Doctor Who costumes.
Exactly.
Because there wasn't a welcoming spot for them in the sci-fi con world, so...
Yeah. That's exactly it. And also, frankly, if you take a look at what was happening in science fiction 20 years ago, like this is really like 20 years ago, the 90s, there was like a lot of the popularity of anime with people, at least of my generation, was because we wanted more science fiction stories, and we weren't necessarily getting serviced by, by American television. Like we had Star Trek, and Star Trek was great, and we had Babylon 5. Name one other like science fiction series from the 90s that's like space, set in space.
Homeboys in Outer Space.
I did watch every episode of that. Jimmy Doohan was on it for a little while.
I'm shocked that I even remember.
The easy one is Stargate, SG-1.
Okay.
Which premiered in the late 90s.
Okay.
Yeah, it came into it was still on Showtime in the 90s, but they started syndicating it.
Well, I think we kind of got to our point though. It's
yeah.
I mean,
but
Wizard World is.
But so what I was saying is there's the same people then who wanted to go to science fiction conventions who found themselves alienated there, but who also liked anime, and so they started the anime cons. And that's where a lot of that, like, at least in the Midwest, like, I know in Wisconsin, there was a whole other con scene that existed in Wisconsin that collapsed. That's why, like, No Brand Con, the convention that I currently work for and I co-founded back in the day, there was a gap in the middle where I didn't work for them. They are on convention number 17 this year. Like, we're planning for 17 right now. And they're one of the oldest cons in the state. But then you jump to, like, the next oldest is, like WisCon is like decades older than that, but they're a sci-fi lit convention because they're like one of the few survivors. But there was like a whole myriad of other conventions in the 90s in Wisconsin that don't exist anymore. WisCon's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. There might be some smaller gaming conventions I can't remember, that have lasted longer, but yeah. Like Odyssey Con is only 1 year older than No Brand Con because it was formed by a bunch of people who had been at some of the like collapsed science fiction cons. Yeah. Anyways, history. Lots of it. That was a really simplified version of the history, too. Wizard World can suck it. Like, the short answer is that pop culture cons are getting way too expensive to run. They're oversaturated, and it's an unsustainable business model. Wizard World, you are screwed.
Yeah, basically.
At least you're trying to recreate your magazine.
Oh, burn. All right.
Remember when they were a magazine company?
I do. I actually do.
Jesus Christ.
All
Oh,
right. Well, let's look in the mailbag because we're doing well. We could have a short episode here. Come on, we could do this.
short for us.
Come on, we could do this still.
All right.
All right. Digging in the mailbag. What do we got? What do we got? And oh look, I found a letter.
Oh my God!
I got one. It's
got one.
written on parchment. No, it's not. Anyway, it's this is from Arkham Ice. And it's called Adapting Your Name. Hey, nerds wearing ties. Long time, no letter again. Managed to find some free time. I'm actually at work right now, but don't tell anyone.
Hey, everyone.
And had a question
Yes.
for the team. We heard recently that J.J. Abrams is going to be producing, or at least involved with making, an adaptation of the amazing anime film Your Name. Now, most people's initial reaction was to be boo and hiss, which is completely reasonable. But I'd like to give it the benefit of the doubt, and at this time, adaptation can bring their own fresh take while using elements as from the original as guidelines. Now, this part might be tricky to do spoiler free, but if you were writing an adaptation of this story, what kind of changes would you make to be positive or at least a unique experience over the original? Okay, Arkhamize, I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it. I've
I
heard it's really good and I want to see it.
None of us have
he's
seen
one
it.
of my favorite directors. One of my favorite directors did this movie. I'm so proud of him because I remember when he was making. I remember when Makoto Shinkai, who directed Your Name, made his first film release here in the States, which was one of his earliest movies, was Voices from a Distant Star, of an indie anime movie. He basically made that with limited funds. In fact, the original cut of the movie, he and his wife did the voices for it. that's how limited his budget was when he made that movie. And I've loved his stuff so much. And then when his movie was the biggest movie in Japan last year, I was so proud. It was the only movie that outdid Godzilla at the Japanese box office. I mean, blew my mind. I haven't seen it yet. And for that matter, I didn't see it in theaters, and the home video release is still a month off. So I won't be able to see it for a while.
Yeah.
I want to, but it's November 7th, buddy. I'll see it then. But until then,
all I can say is the changes that I expect to be made are lens flares.
You see, he hasn't tossed those in movies for 6 years.
Yes, but I could still make a joke about it.
I don't know.
I don't.
I
JJ
feel
would not
like
be my first person for something like that.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about that fit, but
he was a good fit for Star Wars, but he's been a fan of Star Wars since he was a child.
yeah.
I don't know what, and he usually, I don't know anything about Your Name. That's the thing, is I knew that there was an anime called Your Name, but I'll tell you, when I read the headlines,
sci-fi body swapping story. That's all I know, and everyone who went to it told me they cried their eyes out.
I'll tell you, when I first read when I first read the headlines, I thought someone had accidentally put out a placeholder headline for a moment because it was Your Name. I was like, oh no, that's the actual name of something. That's how I am. But I also have repeatedly told people that I am out of touch with. I've been out of touch with anime for over a decade. So
the thing is, everyone I've talked to has told me that it's a heartbreaking, heartwarming movie. And JJ is not the person I think of when it comes to that kind of movie. To put it in perspective, Makoto Shinkai does a lot of sci-fi pieces, but sci-fi is usually his backdrop. his main theme in almost every movie he does is about isolation and people who love each other who are unable to connect via one thing or another. I don't think of J.J. Abrams as that kind of personal
No,
storyteller.
J.J. Abrams is all about like either big adventure or the mystery box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not a natural fit because once again.
So at some point in the thing, a red liquid will be introduced that's like kind of floating in ball form. That's what I'm getting.
Yeah, because again,
people who watch a lot of J.J. Abrams might get that joke.
His stupid. I just.
Either that
but
or
yeah,
Felicity.
like that's JJ's thing is like it's lens flares, floating balls, mystery boxes. It's not personal stories about two people who are unable to connect with each other through circumstance, and that's basically Makoto Shinkai's entire filmography.
So let's now actually let's deep dive into J.J. Abrams' filmography then. Let's go back to his first big hit. No, his first big hit was Felicity.
Mm-hmm.
A personal drama about normal people living in the world, nothing fantastical, about a woman who falls in love with someone who she doesn't know, who really feels no connection to her, and she desperately tries to rewrite her life to impress this guy who she has no real connection to. And
I guess you could say the same about Cloverfield now that I think about it.
So I guess my point is that like he does like I'm not saying that Felicity is the be all and end all of everything. It is like there are parts of it I like and there are parts of it that make me roll my eyes intensely, but and I probably would have never watched it at all if my ex-girlfriend hadn't like insisted we watch it. But I will admit I enjoyed it. Like, I'm not going to lie and say, like, I didn't like the show. But it wasn't, like, a perfect piece of fiction. But my point is that there is some drive in J.J. Abrams to tell personal stories. I'm not saying he's any good at it. Like, I don't want to, like, give him credit, like, you know, for, you know, a show he did, you know, 15 years ago and say that, oh, but he must be great, you know. But no, it, like... There's clearly some part of him that wants to do the thing. Whether or not he's good at the thing is a whole other thing, you know, is a whole other matter. Like, there are lots of things I want to do that I would be terrible at, you know?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'd love to be a rock star. Guess what's not going to happen, or if I tried, I wouldn't be super great at.
I mean, and granted, I'm also coming off of these live-action anime movies have been burning me pretty hard lately.
Oh,
Ghost
yeah,
in the Shell was a garbage fire. Death Note had the potential to not be a garbage fire, but was just too short to be good.
Death Note is one of those major disappointments because it's not a like. There are Japanese elements to the original story, but it's not fundamentally a Japanese story. Like that's the whole thing. Is it's like Ghost in the Shell. The whitewashing and stuff, like it is fundamentally a story about the identity of Japan. Like
Death Note, on the other hand, is like actually most of the symbolism from it is actually the Book of Genesis. So
yeah, like
I mean,
I had hope for Death Note, which was quickly dashed upon its release, but like I could have handled like the stuff like it.
This is just it, and I mean this
is going to be terrible.
This is but even with Death Note, at least they waited 10 years. This movie came out in Japan last year.
At least with Death Note, they waited 10 years with multiple Japanese live action adaptations.
This is I think there already was a live action adaptation of Your Name, which is weird, but still just we have an instant classic, and they're not even waiting to rip it apart, and I'm not in favor of it. So that's my take on it, Archimized.
Let's all pretend it's not happening.
That's my take on it. Sorry, buddy.
So let's move on to the Hall of Awesome. All right, time for the Vomit Hat Steve Challenge. The Vomit Hat Steve Challenge is the part of the show where I read part of a book, and the challenge to you, the listener/viewer, is to guess what book I am reading from. If you guess the book correctly, your name gets included in the Hall of Awesome. The benefits of the Hall of Awesome are as follow. 1, we put your name on our website. 2, I read your name aloud on episodes. That's it. It's just a fun little thing we do.
What more do you want?
I don't know. They always want more, Nick.
They always want more.
Anyways, the current members of the Hall of Awesome are as follows. Arkham Zero, Ren Cindy, Cheesy McDammy, Krista, Slithery, Seamus Otaku, The Ramblings Man, Record Fan, Capito, Chris Graham, Lillisaurus, Paper Godzilla, Cavsy, Minnesota Librarian, Sean Orange, Keith Shizuo, and Sakura Sunset. Yes. And we've been reading from the same book for a while, and it is getting really warm in my office right now, so this is, if I faint, please someone yell loud enough to, get someone in here. All right, so the current line from the book is, I'll read this one. A pilot came out to take me into the inner harbor, which was reached through a narrow channel among coral reefs. If you know a book that's from, go to nerdandted.com/contact and tell us. Or if you have anything else you want to say, why I need to go take a breath, why Nick looks so pale, why Gen needs to talk more and has psychic powers and is secretly reading our minds and puppeteering everything the rest of us say and do, which is why she's too busy to say something right now. Just go to nerdandted.com/contact and tell us. Or if you'd like to have your voice heard aloud on the show, just pick up your telephone and dial 414-375-0480 and leave us a voicemail, and we would play your voicemail right here. You could be on the show just saying words.
Live
hopefully.
With your pumped up kicks.
You better run, better run. Outrun my bullet.
Faster than Barry Allen.
Barry Allen.
You can do it.
Has pumped up kicks because he can outrun their bullet.
Mm-hmm.
So can Superman.
Fact.
I mean, Superman, it's right in the, faster than, just right over there. And I'm just saying, faster than the speeding bullet seems kind of,
It was the 30s. Come on.
I'm just saying, if the bullet is just sitting there, it's not hard to be faster than, so I feel like it's an unnecessary,
well, it's a speeding bullet, so it's...
Wait, is it...
it's been shot.
Faster speeding bullet, stronger than a locomotive?
More powerful than a locomotive.
More powerful
able
than a
to leap tall buildings
in a single bound. That one I remembered. But yeah. No, I couldn't remember what the thing with the locomotive, exactly, what the line was there. It's been a day, man. Oh, Jesus.
A single day.
Oh...
This amazing orphan from the planet Krypton, the Man of Steel, Superman!
That's the John Williams
Superman
score.
maintains his... oh. Sorry, Max Fleischer's Superman is, one of the best versions of Superman. You ignore the two horribly racist episodes, and it's perfect.
Oh, God, we should get out of here, shouldn't we?
Let's get out of here.
So, quietly standing by, I am Gen Proc.
I'm Trey Dorn.
And I am the one true heir of Arturia Pendragon, Nick Izumi.
I'll even put on the right outro music.
Hey.
So, and remember, you can always subscribe to Nerd and Tie by going to nerdandtie.com, clicking on the RSS feed. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Google Play, and remember to rate and review us on iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play or whatever, because we want to tell all the people about how great the show is. Remember, you can follow us on also on YouTube, where you can find the videos at youtube.com/Traygorn for our main videos. Nick's videos can be found at youtube.com/Nickizumi on his separate channel, but those are the video essays we also post on the site. You can support all of us at... Nick and I both have Patreons, where you can find Nick's at patreon.com/Nickizumi. Mine is patreon.com/TRAEGORN. You can also support Gen by submitting to her coffee. Her coffee link is /Genjamin. You can, to go through all of us, you can follow us on Twitter at Nerd and Tie, on Tumblr at Nerd and Tie, at Facebook /Nerd and Tie. And so please hook up with us on social media and tell us how great your life is and how much better you are for being in the world and for how much we are for being part of your world and stuff.
And stop.
Did I miss anything?
Not that I can think of.
I need to write this stuff down.
That would help.
And remember, you can support our GoFundMe at gofundme.com/nerdandtie.
Have a great night, everybody, and keep on spocking in the free world.
Oh, we must escape. Where's the stop button? Like, I always can't find the stop. I don't know why I can't find the stop button. It's right there. I'm gonna click it now.